All right, welcome everyone to the webinar today. My name is Brian Mitchell. I'm the Director of the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, or OSIT, which is the State Broadband Office. Today's webinar is called BEAD Project Scoring. So today we'll be going over all of the scoring of each of the individual scoring criteria so that you understand how the information that you submit will be scored by the reviewers. Today's webinar, if you go to the next slide, is part of a series of webinars that we have put together for you that cover different topics. The financial requirements webinar, the grant requirements, technical requirements, and the BEAD program design have occurred in the past, and the slides for those webinars, as well as the recordings of the webinar itself, have all been posted on the OSIT website and are available for viewing. This webinar is also being recorded today, and the slides that you'll see today will also be posted on the OSIT website in the coming days. I'll remind everybody that the BEAD request for applications has been posted, and the clock has started for when applications are due. The applications for BEAD are due on October 10th, and pre-qualification must be completed by October 7th. So encourage everybody to get their pre-applications in and then get started on some of the aspects of their BEAD applications. As always, if you have questions, please submit those questions in writing to highspeednv@gov.nv.gov. As we've done with previous webinars, we will have some presentation content for you. And then at the conclusion of the presentation, we will stop the recording. And if there are questions, we'll take note of them and provide answers in the FAQ when that comes out. The first version of the FAQ, covering questions that were asked previously, was posted on the OSIT website earlier this week. So I encourage you to take a quick look at that. And we will publish updates to the Q&A as questions come in. So be sure to frequently check back at the OSIT website to ensure that you have all the up-to-date information. So with that, pleased to bring back Ziggy from CTC, who will be talking a little bit about the scoring criteria that we have for BEAD. So Ziggy, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to jump right into it. The way that this scoring is organized is according to priority versus non-priority projects. So there are slight differences in how they're scored. This is by NTIA design. Priority projects are those that are with fiber end-to-end, and non-priority projects are any other technology. And these in turn are also then divided into primary and secondary criteria. NTIA has certain rules about how much weight to put on each one of them. And there are some of these criteria are required by NTIA, and most of the secondary criteria are ones that have been designed to fit into Nevada's requirements and needs and adjusted accordingly. So a few definitions in addition to the primary versus secondary and priority versus non-priority. Regional project areas. Hopefully you've already gone through the other webinars and are familiar with this, but if you're not, these are the areas that you will be providing applications for. Each one is a separate proposal, and you can see the area map, and there's a link to it, and so you know what it is you're bidding on. And just as a reminder, scoring is by project, and each project is separate. So if you have multiple projects, each one will be scored separately. And of course, there are some questions that are common to multiple project applications but there are also some, and especially the scoring piece, that will differ from project to project. So minimal BEAD outlay, that's the total funding that will be required to complete a project. Affordability relates to a commitment to have an affordable price for gigabit symmetric service. And then fair labor practices looks at your record and future-looking plans to be compliant with federal labor and employment laws. Those, as you can see, make up the bulk of the scoring that will be available. And then, of course, the secondary criteria: speed to deployment, how fast you're able to deploy. Can give you up to 1 point if you can do it on an accelerated basis. But as we'll get to it, reminder, you have 4 years to do this. This is by NTA requirement. But of course, if you can do it faster, you may get this point. I'll get to how to get that point. And then later on. And then capacity review, what it looks at your ability to complete the build out of the project and your ability to sustain it. And it'll look at financials in particular, but also a variety of different things you'll be submitting. And then, of course, there'll be a technical review as well. And then a few others, what the state is committed to making sure that there is an affordable option for consumers. And so we're interested in the extent to which you can offer lower bandwidth affordability. So similar to the affordability one up in the primary criteria, but for a lower 100 by 100 megabit per second service. And then finally, low-cost broadband service option that relates to the most affordable total price for low-income applicants. And this is connected with ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program of the federal government. And of course, as you know, it's closed for applicants, and without additional funding will not survive. But this also relates to a commitment to successor programs to the ACP, should there be some in the future. So minimal BEAD outlay, there is a formula for this, and it compares your cost proposal and the amount you're requesting to a benchmark that so each RPA will have a benchmark cost. These targets and benchmarks are available on that map, and you can consult those. And the subsidy level that you're proposing will factor into the calculation and compared to the benchmark target. I'm not going to go into like the formula itself. It should be self-explanatory. There is, you look at the ratio of your proposed subsidy with the target that the cost model has, target benchmark the cost model has, divide by 2. That gives you the subsidy score. That in turn is multiplied by the total number of points available, which is 25. And so you'll get the fraction of 25 depending on how much you are requesting. So just a reminder, you're required to have some skin in the game. Obviously, the more you can provide of your own, the better score you'll get. You can't request more than 75%, meaning that you have to have a minimum of 25% match that you provide into it, unless you have a waiver, or unless you're constructing in one of the high cost areas. And the high cost areas are also noted on the map. There aren't many, but there are some, and those do not require a subsidy. Of course, if you have one, you'll get a better score, but it's not required for those areas because it understands that just the economics of those areas make it very difficult to have a competitive proposal if you also have to provide a match. There is a requirement to first look at to only if you want a waiver, that is subject to NTA approval, and NTA has required that if there are other proposals available that are cost effective, meaning it doesn't exceed the extremely high cost per location threshold, or basically the threshold at which, based on applications the state has received, it'll be simply considered too costly to use fiber. And for those, if the state can't get a proposal or negotiate a proposal within that budget that's available for the area, then it can look at the waiver proposals and assign those, and then the state will submit the waiver request to NTIA. So it'll be subject to award, but Brian, you're welcome to sort of step in, but my understanding is that NTA will be very open to such waiver requests.
Hey, thanks, Ziggy. And yeah, and I'll provide a little color commentary on the minimal BEAD outlay scoring requirement. So kind of the first thing I think I'll mention is that the scoring requirement, something that you should know is that the scoring requirement is designed to incentivize match from applicants. And it's designed to reward applicants that provide or that need the smallest amount of subsidy possible. So as you're thinking about what you're going to provide, or the type of, what your costs look like and how you're going to propose, you will be able to do the math essentially and figure out what your score is in this section before you submit your application to OSIT. And so there won't be any mystery here. You can adjust how much you want to provide in match in order to get the kind of score that you think you need in order to win the bid. The second thing I'll say is that the scoring is based on, as Ziggy mentioned, a reference price. So the reference price, and all of those reference prices have been available now for a week or two on the website. Those reference prices are essentially the mechanism that we're using to score. You may not agree with the reference price. You may think it costs more than the reference price to serve that area. Or you may think it costs less. So if you believe that it costs more, you're not bound by the total amount of money that is in the reference price for that RPA. You can tell us that the total amount is going to be twice as much, and that you need a greater subsidy than what was provided. In which case, go ahead and bid that, and you'll be scored accordingly, as on a reference or based on the reference price. or using the reference price as a reference point in order to um, to have a score assigned to your proposal. So at the same time, you may think that the proposal or that the RPA would cost significantly less than what the reference price is. And that's, for a number of factors that may be true for your particular company, in which case there may be an advantage to you in the scoring to propose a lesser total price and a lesser scoring and a lesser referent necessary subsidy in order to have the every location within the RPA served. Point is go ahead and just bid go ahead and bid the price that you think is right, and you'll get scored accordingly. The final thing I'll mention is that if while OSIT cannot award more than 75% of the cost without a match waiver, if match is an issue for you, go ahead and submit a match waiver. And even if you require 100% match in order to complete the project. So NTIA has indicated they will consider match waivers when there is a justification for it. And the justification is the grounds for justification are outlined in the BEAD NOFO, where it has to, there can be economic justifications, or there can be other justifications that serve the benefit of the program. So if you feel that you need a match waiver, go ahead and submit one. Just know that if another applicant is able to do the project without a match waiver, that project will receive a higher score, at least in this section. So, but we wouldn't want somebody to not submit a proposal simply because of the match issue. So I would encourage you to go ahead and submit an application and submit the match waiver and see what happens. So back over to you, Ziggy.
Okay, thank you. The next criteria for scoring is affordability. And here you will be giving us a rate for gigabit service. This is, voluntary. You could choose not to, in which case you will not get the points, but you're not required to come up with the cheapest price possible. There are a number of different ways that you can get those 30 points. One is you commit to a price that's no higher than what the urban rate study says, and the urban rate studies has it pretty high because it takes 2 standard deviations above the mean on a national basis. And then the other option is looking at symmetrical service for median provider over the last 3 years in Nevada, which is currently $95. It should not be terribly difficult to hit that number. And finally, that you simply will offer the same price in the BEAD areas as you are already offering in non-BEAD areas. It's lower. Sorry, it's lower than that offered in the urban rate studies in addition. So it's either the 3-year median or the FCC's previous year urban rate. Whatever rate you list, it'll be a binding commitment. So you may not want to list an artificially low price because you'll be committing to whatever rate you list. If you don't want to list, that's fine, but then you'll get 0 points. fair labor practices, this is one of those required federal criteria of evaluation. And there are two different aspects to this. One is looking at your past compliance with labor laws, and then the second piece of this, and it is ensuring future compliance with federal labor laws. And by the way, all of this is in the volume 2 and scoring rubric, which you should be consulting. And some of it is also laid out in the application form itself. But you should really look at IPv2, as we call it, initial proposal in volume 2 that has the scoring rubric and the scoring protocols and explanations of what all this means. So for the 10 points you can get for past compliance, if you've certified that you were in full compliance and you don't have any violations, you get the 10 points. So it's pretty simple. If you have followed federal laws and you don't have any violations, you'll simply get the full 10 points. If you have violations, then we ask a series of additional questions and give you fractional points based on that. And there's a breakdown here that you can consult. But if you have more than 2 violations, you won't get any points. And within the violation, there's a deduction for the based on the violation itself, and then a mitigation so you could, for example, if you have a single violation, 3 points will be deducted, but 2 of them can be sort of regained if you can show specific future-based plan to ensure full future compliance. And similarly, if you have 2 violations, 8 points will be deducted unless you have future focused violations, in which case it'll only be, future focused explanation of your plan so you don't repeat these violations in the future and ensure full compliance, and then you can get 5 points. New applicants, if you're a new applicant and you don't have a full 3-year operational experience, there are situations in which you can still get points by if the executive officer of the provider has been in a similar position in another company, and you can then rely on the track record there as well, which could then give you the points under this criterion. If you don't have any evidence, if you don't provide any evidence of past compliance, then obviously you won't receive any points. Then there's the future compliance. This is something that both new entrants and existing providers should be able to provide answers for. Again, that was up to 10 points. And we'll evaluate your plans for future compliance. And we have some areas that we're going to be looking for, how you're going to communicate your labor law, the labor laws and safety regulations. And by the way, this includes not just you, but also your subcontractors, and how you're going to ensure a trained, skilled, and certified workforce. what's your monitoring plan to make sure that to track that you are in compliance with this plans, and again, what's your oversight for your subcontractors to make sure that they don't have any labor violations, and if there are any issues, what's your process for addressing and resolving them, and again, how are you going to work with your subcontractors on this? And then for new entrants, we're also going to of course, everybody is welcome to also talk about commitment to other protections and workforce standards, but this will be required for new entrants. Speed to deployment. It's 1 point and it's not based on a particular threshold. Again, there's a 4-year requirement, but we will be looking at each RFA will be looking at the applicant that promises and commits to complete it the fastest, and only they will get that 1 point. So there's one winner here. At the same time, it is a single point. And then a reminder that whatever you commit to will be binding. So if you say that you can complete this in 28 months, you are now you will be contractually obligated to do it within that time frame. Okay, capacity review. This is a total of 8 points that are available to demonstrate your capacity in different areas. There are 3 major areas, and again, you can consult the initial proposal, volume 2, and we listed the sections you can find this in. There's the financial capacity, managerial capacity, and operational capacity. And you should, in addition to IPv2, you can look at the scoring rubric, and some of the sort of sub areas we'll be looking at for financial capacity is we will be looking at you'll be submitting a pro forma, and there is and we had a separate webinar, I'm sorry, on the financials where we went over some of this. So you'll be providing a pro forma, and the project budget and the business plan, and that will get us a sense of your ability to, one, complete the project build out itself. Do you have enough funding, etc., to be able to complete the construction? And also, do you have a long-term financial plan for the operation of this project and the network? We'll be asking about your sources of funding for the project, and we'll also be asking of any similar project you may have had where you successfully completed them in scope. The 2 other categories, managerial and operational. For managerial, we'll be looking at the quality and expertise of your management team. You'll be providing some descriptions and resumes, and also evidence of past project and how you were able to manage them successfully. And then also you'll be providing some narrative about your ability to take on this project, and in light of any other commitments you have to for construction, to make sure that you have the workforce needed to complete this project. And then finally, the operational experience. We'll be asking some questions about your experience operating a network, and a knock, etc. And then again, the ability to absorb any new areas within your operations. Another 8 points available for a technical review. And so we'll be asking about your ability to successfully deploy and operate the network facilities, and the capacity. So there are a couple sub areas. One is your technical capacity, and I'll go into that in a second. And the other is how feasible and reasonable the technical proposal is. And you, again, consult the application form and the scoring rubric in addition to IPv2 for any details on how you'll be evaluated. But the subcategories here for the technical capacity is we'll be looking at the qualifications of key technical personnel that you have the listed will be involved in the build out. And we'll also, again, ask and evaluate any what you've submitted as prior build out experience. And then in terms of the feasibility and reasonableness of your technical proposal, we'll look at your technical plan and your time frame, your budget, timeline, and does it look reasonable? Does it look right? And we'll be evaluating it also in light of the technology that you're adopting it, and then look at the capacity of and availability you have for the construction workforce. Again, skills, licenses, safety training, and any standards that you'll have for the involved job titles. And then we'll, of course, review your actual network drawings and any shape files you'll be providing for what this is going to look like. Lower bandwidth affordability, 5 points available in that. And here we'll be looking at the 100 megabit per second symmetric service plans. We will ask for a specific proposed price. And we'll then compare that to a reference plan. And I'll talk about this in a second. And there, you're not required to keep the price for the entire period of performance of 5 years. You can have escalators, etc., that you can itemize as you fill out the form for the pricing here. If you don't have, and many don't, a specific 100 megabit per second symmetric plan that you're offering, we'll be asking you to then submit the pricing for the lower speed tier that offers a minimum of the 100 megabit per second. So if you have like a 300 over 100 plan, but not 100 and nothing in between, then that's the one you would be providing pricing for. And this is a formula for scoring. So if you propose a price, if you can get it down to $40 or lower, you'll receive a maximum of 5 points. If you have it at 50, that's the midpoint, and you'll receive 2.5 points. And then if you have 60 or higher, you won't receive any points. So you yes, and it's fractional too. So with each dollar increase, you'll increase or reduce by 0.25 points. So if and so you can calculate what you'll be getting on this yourself. There again, the reference price would be $50. That's what we would be comparing against. It doesn't mean that you're committed to this. I'm sorry, it doesn't mean that you have to meet that. Again, what you're able to do is how you'll be scored. And there are some certain assumptions regarding that. You you have to reliably and consistently provide at least 100 megabit per second symmetric service. And whatever price you quote here should be inclusive of all fees and not have a special activation, installation, and security deposit or any other upfront fees that you put on the subscriber, and latency of no more than 100 millisecond. And then, of course, no data caps, surcharges, or throttling. So if you can't offer, there is a sort of a waiver ability here. If you have particularly remote locations that you are offering to serve, if they are more than 30 miles from from the interstate 80 or 580 or 15 or US Highway 93, and those are proxies essentially for where there's backhaul infrastructure, you can seek that waiver. So you'll raise the $60 a month maximum than the reference model pricing, and up to 70. So the maximum threshold won't be 60, but $70. Brian, do you want to add anything to this?
Sure. Thanks, Ziggy. I will just make a quick comment or a quick point of commentary about the affordability and then the lower bandwidth affordability scoring sections. We do not require a particular price to bid, and you're not required to offer any price in particular in order to win an award. We simply ask what price you're going to charge, and then we compare that to a model or a reference price in order to determine what your score is. So if you tell us you're going to score, if you tell us you are going to offer a price, then then that's what that's the score you'll get. If you don't want to tell us what prices you're going to charge, that's fine. But since you're not providing anything, we can't give you a score. One of the things that we want to do is ask for a commitment to offer that price, whatever price it is, allowing for increases over time if you'd like. But we want to ask for that what price you're going to charge over a 5-year period, so that we don't run into any applicants that try to game the system by saying, well, we're going to charge $1, but they're only going to charge $1 for the first month and then raise the price significantly, right? And so if you would like, it doesn't have to, the price that you tell us doesn't have to be a flat price over the 5 years. You can say that you're going to build in inflationary increases or according to CPI, or you can say we're going to charge, $50 the first year, $55 the second year, $60 the third, and $70 the fourth, and so on. And your scoring will be based off of an average of the years that of the different years. So one of the things that you'll notice when we ask you when you fill out the application for funds, is we will ask you what's the price year 1, what's the price year 2, what's the price year 3, and that'll be your opportunity to tell us essentially, is it going to be a flat rate for the 5 years, or are you going to build in increases, et cetera. But just want to make sure that everybody knows that ultimately providing a price for either of these is optional. It's just a way for you to score points. And that's kind of the bottom line there.
Thank you. And then the last criterion for priority projects is the low cost broadband service option. Those that's the service option that you'll offer for that folks that are eligible for ACP can use. And so we're looking here for what you'll do for your low cost plan for qualified households. So if they meet the criteria, and the criteria are available in IPv2. So if you meet the criteria, and they're also, by the way, similar to the criteria we laid out for the reference model. But if they meet that at $30 per month, you can meet the $30, you'll receive 3 points. If $50 or more, it'll be 0 points. And it's basically a mathematical formula. So you'll get 0.15 points for every dollar lower than 50. And again, for a maximum of 3 points. So hope this shouldn't be too difficult to calculate.
Hey, and I'll cut in here and just provide one other piece of commentary for the low-cost broadband service option. So this was a requirement in the BEAD NOFO by NTIA that states had to define what a low-cost plan was. So we had to propose a low-cost plan to NTIA, what that would entail, and that was part of the approval process that we had in order to get to this point in the process. So the low cost, the way scoring works for the low cost plan, and when we talk about low cost, it is the folks who are eligible for a low cost plan would mirror those who are eligible for an ACP plan. And if Congress decides to fund a new ACP with new eligibility criteria, then the criteria for the low cost plan would automatically update to that amount or to that eligibility for a subscriber. So ultimately, applicants are required to offer a low cost plan at $50 a month. And if you offer a low cost plan that's less than that, then that's how you get points in this particular scoring criteria. So, but if you choose not to offer something at a lower price point, then the $50 is the ceiling there. So just want to make sure that aspect is clear.
Okay. So we've gone to the non-priority projects scoring, and happily it is very similar, in mostly identical to fiber projects. So the non-fiber projects have the same points spread on primary criteria, and for the secondary criteria, the same exact points for the speed to deployment, and the differences is in the points that are available for capacity and technical reviews. So you can look at, for any non-priority projects, fixed wireless, or for example, you can look at the priority project slides here. They're essentially scored in the same manner. The only difference on the capacity review and the technical review is that there's a higher point total available, 12 points rather than 8 points in each one respectively. But other than that, the actual evaluation is the same. So that was it. So now we're open for questions.
Hey, thanks, Ziggy, for walking through all of that. And I think before we get to questions, I'll just offer one last piece of commentary on scoring as a whole, and where I would kind of focus my attention as an applicant. So two of the larger scoring criteria are affordability at the 1 gig symmetrical level, and then fair labor practices. So that's half of the scoring there. So if you're an applicant that can provide or that commits to the affordability standard and has no past labor law violations, then you have, half of the points right there. If your costs are reasonable and in line with what other providers would charge in terms of the amount of BEAD subsidy needed, then then you're in line with most of your competitors in the primary criteria, which is 75% of the scoring. So where you, I think, will really differentiate yourself in the scoring is in the capacity review, or the capacity, the technical, and then the lower bandwidth and lower income affordability. And so I would encourage you to spend a lot of time articulating your capacity and your technical sections, exactly kind of what you're going to do and how you're going to be able to achieve it, because those are the two sections that will really be scrutinized to ensure that the project will end up being successful.